Hi everyone, Taya here from Quilting Delights, and I am very excited to be here because we are on class 4 and 5 of the quilting primer, and that means we're almost done. I'm just going to do a quick review. We've used quite a few of our rulers. We've used straight rulers, we've used curve rulers, we've gone through design and how to mark your quilt. We sent out some really cool corner designs, and if you have not received those, please email us at info@quiltingdelights.com. Let us know that you need the corner designs for the quilting primer, and we will email the files to you. This is a completely free program, and we have done a great job getting a free pattern out to you to support your learning how to use your Bernina stitch regulator with ruler work attachments. So we have some fun projects, fun blocks to work on today. And I'm just going to show you a couple of things real quick as a reminder. For those of you that have a Bernina, or for those of you that have any brand sewing machine, you can get a ruler work foot that looks like this. It has an edge, a 1/4 inch rise on the outside that goes next to rulers. And that's pretty awesome to be able to do ruler work with a ruler work foot. The problem is, if you have a stitch regulator for your Bernina, we want to use the stitch regulator. We don't want to do this freehand. We want to use our stitch regulator. And the Bernina stitch regulator now has a compatible, I invented and designed a compatible ruler work attachment in 3 different sizes. So this particular project, the quilting primer, and many of the projects that we have on our YouTube channel are designed for you to be able to use the compatible attachment that goes directly on your stitch regulator. So now we can do ruler work with our stitch regulator. It's kind of the difference between driving a clutch and driving an automatic. So today we're going to work on automatic quilting, or BSR ruler work quilting, and we're going to do 4 blocks and these little eggs that go in the circles. Okay, let's get started. I'm working on, I don't remember what block number this is, but it is using a ruler, a circle ruler, and you can see that it's a serpentine pattern, but the problem is we don't want to do the outside curve and then flip it around and do the inside curve and flip it around and do the outside curve. So if you remember when I talked the last 2 classes about doing circles, many times doing circles, it's easier to do the top half of the circle and then flip it over, or do the bottom half of the circle and they meet in the middle. We're going to do the same thing with the serpentine. So, for example, I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to needle up, needle down right in the seam, and pull my thread to the top. Set my needle position right on the corner there, and then set my ruler to go around to the point. So if you look here, this is a 1/4 turn on a 4-inch circle. It's a 1/4 turn on a 4-inch circle. And what we're going to do is we're going to end up at the point, and then we're going to go to the next point, and the next point, and the next point. And we're going to do that on all of the serpentines going this direction. And then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to do exactly the same thing the other direction. So we do have to turn our quilt 1 time, but we don't have to turn it every time. So here we go. So here I am going to a 1/4 turn, and I'm going to stop right at the point. And I'm going to stop my machine because I forgot to switch it over to number 1. I like to quilt with number 1 BSR because it stops, when I stop stitching, it stops stitching, and it gives me a much better control over what's going on. Remember, on the good measure rulers, they've got some surface on the bottom of the ruler that helps hold on to the fabric. But what we've done is we've added on the top our Rough It Up tape. And I know you all are laughing at my gloves, but I've had these forever and they work so good. They've got rubber grips on the bottom. Nowadays, if I don't have these handy, I will use my gardening gloves. Stopping at the point, And I'm moving my ruler. And notice that my work is staying pretty loose because I want to be able to move it around and hit those lines exactly. I love that I can do really nice curved piecing with my BSR and my rulers. Or curved quilting, sorry. And I can hit those marks every single time. Look at that. Loving it. One last time, and then I'm going to tie off and go to the next one down. All right, so I've got the tops of my serpentines done, and I'm going to do the bottom of the serpentines. And when you look at it finished, after you've gotten it done quilting, after you finish quilting it, you're going to notice that it looks like a serpentine, which is exactly what we're doing. All right, you can also think about whether you want to do these small design elements in some of the blocks. I think they're really cool. Sarah, who helps with the design on all of these, just did a fantastic job. Those are going to be free motion with your BSR, and they'll be a nice add, a nice touch to this particular block. Okay, let's go set up and move to the next block. Whose is that?
Debbie Cox.
Did she finish hers?
She just brought it in. I was waiting for you to hear.
Oh my gosh, we've got a surprise for you. So one of our customers, one of our wonderful customers, Debbie, just finished her quilting primer, and oh my goodness, what a nice job she did. Isn't that fantastic?
Using the BSR with the...
Using the BSR with the compatible ruler work attachment. She did something a little different in her borders, but she did go to our website, quiltingdelights.com, and across the top is a tab that says free downloads, and she used the peeper binding to finish off the outside edge and bring just that touch of color to the outside edge. Oh my goodness, that is absolutely beautiful. I haven't seen one finished yet, so this is amazing. Great job, Debbie. Really great job. Okay, let's get back to our...
It will be on YouTube.
Yes, it'll be on YouTube. Let's get back to our quilt so that we can get it done and out on YouTube as well. Okay, so I've moved on to the next block, which is right next to the one we did. And this one is pretty fun, and we are going to do it 1/4 of it at a time. Now, if you find, part of the game here is finding how to peel the apple all in one fell swoop. And what I mean by that is the fewer times that you can stop and have to sew away threads, the better. So I am going to work on this block so that I think I only have 4 threads to sew away. That does not mean that you can't look at it and find a better way to do it. We're just making suggestions to get this done using the rulers. And so what I'm going to do, because I don't want to move my quilt around and I don't want to start and stop at each end, I'm going to start on one side and quilt over to the corner. Then I'm going to stitch in the ditch up to the next line. I'm going to quilt over to the other side. I'm going to stitch in the ditch to the next line, quilt over to the other side, stitch in the ditch to the next line, and quilt over. I'm going to do that all the way to the center as far as I can. Actually, I'm going to do it right to here. And then I will start working down. So I can do 2 sides. I actually can do 2 sides. I don't have to do 4 sections. I can do 2 sides and only have 1 thread that I have to sew away. Then I'll turn my quilt around to the other side and do the same thing, and then the middle. So let's see if we can make this happen. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention. Some of you will be saying, well, why don't we start at the top and work our way down? Well, the reason you want to start at the bottom and work your way up is because when you get to the last curve here, it's going to end so that you can use that as a starting position for the other side. So sometimes you start at the top and work your way down. Sometimes you start at the bottom and work your way up. But I really just want you to think through this and look at each individual block and see where the possibilities are for quilting it in as few thread cutoffs as we can get. All right, the other thing we're doing in this block is we're using the So Kind of Wonderful Curve It rulers. This is the big one, the QCR Curve It rulers. I love So Kind of Wonderful rulers because they've got good markings. They have a lot of quarter inch markings. They also have a good center one. So to get this correct, when we actually marked it, this center line, you want it to be straight on to the corner, and that'll make sure that you're quilting the right curve. Okay, I've already pulled my thread up. A couple of things to remember. Don't ever put your foot down, don't ever put your ruler foot down with the ruler too close to it. We want to put the ruler foot down with it far away and then bring the ruler up to it. Okay, so here we go. And now I'm going to stitch up to the next line. And now I'm going to stitch over, again making sure that I have this straight line straight onto the corner. That's going to make my curve perfect. Oops, I forgot to put my gloves back on, and I can feel the difference. I tell you, I used to quilt a lot and I ended up with tendonitis in my elbow, so it really does make a difference to have those gloves on. And I'm just riding the edge of the ruler, and it's perfect. Lining up my center line. The other thing that's helpful here is as we're moving up, we have that center line, but you're also lining up one of the 1/4 inch lines on the line that you previously stitched. And I'm holding on to the ruler and my quilt at the same time. Do one more line and then we're going to switch to the other direction. So I've lined up on the previous curve and I'm also straight onto the corner. Okay, so that's one corner. Now I'm going to just turn this slightly. I've lined up my line to the corner, and now we're going to stitch from the outside to the inside. Stop it on that line. Now I'm going to stitch in the ditch down instead of up. Again, matching up to the corner and then on a previous curve. And I missed a stitch. I wasn't quite far enough, so I'm just going to do that by hand. And then we're going to move down to the next line, stitch in the ditch. And notice that my ruler is always in front of me and to the left, but it's never in front of me to the right on this one because that's not where I'm stitching. Normally, just so you know, normally I would have more of the quilt up on the table, but when we're filming, if I have it up on the table like I would do if I were actually quilting it, then Margot can't see what I'm doing. So there's a little bit more work because I can't throw everything up on the table. I keep throwing it up, she keeps flattening it out. But we're almost done here. So now I'm lining up one more time, lining up the center this way and then lining up on a previous line, and that gives me a really solid curve. Okay, 2 more little lines. And notice that I turn my machine on and off a lot. And that's because I like to have control over when it's stitching. I don't want to be rushed. And if I leave the machine on, then I feel like I'm rushing to the next step, and I don't want to do that. And our last line on this side of the block. It's just a little guy. Okay, so we're done with this side. I'm going to raise my foot and raise my needle and pull my thread to the top so that I can sew it off later. And we're on to the next block. That one's fairly easy. Don't forget, when you get the 2 sides done, then what you have left to do is the center, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go from side to side and then turn your block and do the other side. So that's going to be a really fun, beautiful block. It just turned out great. I love the puff of the edges of the quilting. Okay, so we've moved on to another block with curves, and anytime that you're working on curves or circles, you really have to think about, with the stitch regulator, you have to think about which side you're going to be quilting on. So this is a block you can't quilt this way, and you can't quilt this way. We really have to quilt down the side, down the side, down the side. So even though these are circles, we're going to be doing quarter circles, and I'll show you what I mean by that. We're going to start at the top here, and we're going to stitch down to this point. This is a quarter circle. What's great about most of the rulers that are out there, and I'm going to, hopefully you can see this, there's a line here that's vertical, and then there's a line that's horizontal. And that's what you're going to line up with on the outside edge of your block. So you can see that we've got the horizontal line lined up on the top edge of the seam, and we've got the vertical line on the left-hand side of the seam, and we're going to stitch from there. That absolutely drops my needle exactly where I need it to be. And we're only going to stitch a quarter of the circle at a time. So even though there's a full circle here, that doesn't mean we have to stitch it all at the same time. We're going to stitch them a quarter at a time. So I've already pulled my thread up. I wanted to make sure on the last block that we were working on, I said I turn my machine on and off. I turn my stitch regulator on and off a lot. And that's why, as a reminder, I unplug my foot pedal. I don't use my foot pedal when I'm doing ruler work. I have to have more control than what I might accidentally hit my foot pedal with. So I use this on-off button all the time. And anytime I stop, I turn the BSR off. Anytime I start, I turn the BSR on. I use the foot up, foot down button all the time, and I use the needle up, needle down button all the time. I want my work to stop with the needle in the down position when I turn the stitch regulator off. So I explained a little bit about only using part of the circle. The thing with the Bernina stitch regulator is the footprint. It's not the attachment. The footprint forces you to work on the left-hand side of the BSR. So when we start this, we're going to start this top one at an angle, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. So the block is at an angle. The block is at an angle. I still have my quarter circle lines where I need them, lining up with the seam. And now we can stitch this because the block is at an angle. We can stitch the quarter circle here and stop. Again, using, when I say stop, I mean turn the BSR attachment off. Turn the BSR off. And we need to manipulate this just a little bit. Now I'm going to line up my vertical lines on the seam, and I can stitch all the way around to the other side with minimal turning. The point here is we want to use the stitch regulator, but we want minimal turning. Gives you much better quilting. So I'm going to come around, and with these attachments I can go almost 210 degrees. When I get past the quarter mark, I'm just going to rotate my fabric a little tiny bit. I'm not rotating the quilt, I'm just rotating my fabric a little bit. And then I'm going to finish stitching that circle. Rotate just a little bit until I can finish this. Again, always lining up your lines on your ruler. That's what's going to be really key for you. And making sure that the ruler is outside the attachment before you start stitching. We don't want it to slide under. Okay, there we go. And then a little bit of a twist here. And we'll do this last circle. Again, lining up our rulers here and here. The quarter circle here and here. And that's going to give us that last turn. Okay, so now we're going to do that same process with the other curves. And there is a little bit more turning involved with doing curves and circles, but not nearly as much as without a stitch regulator. Without a stitch regulator, you don't have as many turns, but you don't have as the stitches aren't as nice. So I don't mind turning my fabric a little bit on the curves to get that really precision stitching. Okay, that's block number 3. Let's find block number 4, and that was using, if I didn't mention it, that was using a 6-inch Amanda Murphy good measure circle. All right, and our last block is the center block. So it's a little tricky for me to show this one to you because Margot needs this quilt to be flat, and that is hard to do. When you're working on the center block, you want as much of your quilt rolled up as possible so that you have the least amount dragging on it. And you can see from what we're doing here that the circles are, let me show you. The circles we drew a 6, is it a 6-inch or a 7-inch? Let me see. The circle is a 7-inch circle. If I get it going the right direction. Yeah. We drew a 7-inch circle. And so this outside line is at 7. And then you can use a 6-inch circle with the 1/2-inch attachment to get the second echo line exactly a 1/4 inch in. All of this inside work is free motion. This is all free motion. And if you want to help, you could use a ruler to get that curve and then do a little bit of straight stitching. But all of the inside part of this, and actually the curved part of these, is all free motion, and then you have your straight ruler to do the outside edge and to do this. To do these corners, again, to do the circle, let's start with the 7-inch. To do the circle, you're going to have your quilt rolled up nice and tight so that you can do that 200 degrees and then rotate, do another section, rotate, do another section. Remembering that you need to keep this circular ruler, the circle ruler, on the outside left edge of the foot. If you get too far behind, what it does is it knocks it off, and then you can't see right there. You can go that far on a circle ruler before it knocks the footprint of the stitch regulator knocks it off. So you're going to be able to stitch from here all the way around to here, and then you're going to have to rotate your quilt to do the rest of the circle. But it should be fairly simple. And then of course we have the cross hatching game. If you remember that, you're going to start on one side and you're going to go on here. You're going to go straight down, and then you're going to free motion quilt over to the next line, go straight up. And this is using your straight edge ruler. This is using your straight edge ruler. I like to go from right to left, and then I like to go from top to bottom. I don't like to stitch bottom to top. It's kind of like being right-handed or left-handed. So we're going to go down the side here, and then free motion over. And as you start going, you'll see, let me turn this ruler around so you can see, these are 1/2 inch lines apart. And the reason we did that is because on the good measure ruler, you can use that 1/4 inch line as a guide on the line next to it. That way you make sure that your lines are going straight. So I'm going to go up and over and then down, and I'm lining up the 1/4 inch over here. And you can see that if you have your quilt up on top of your table, it's going to be much easier to do. And then I'm just stitching back up to the top here using my guide. And now I'm going to fill in the top part, do the side, and fill in the bottom part. Then I will turn it 90 degrees and I'll do the other direction. Or you can probably, when we get to the end here, you can probably just start quilting your way up to the top and do the same thing, work your way around. So the cross hatching on this one, you don't have to rotate your quilt at all. You will have to rotate it on the circle one time to get the outside edge, because we can go about almost 200 degrees. Well, if a circle is 360 degrees, you only have to rotate it once to get the full 360 degree circle. Okay, so that's how we're going to do that. And that will finish up our entire quilt. We are so excited to see the work that you guys are doing. I know that there are several hundred of you that have taken this project on, and we are just now starting to see finished results. I will post a picture of ours completely done in the next 2 weeks. We've got another amazing project called In the Shadows that I want to encourage all of you to check out and take your quilting to the next level. We're going to film the video for that here shortly, and hopefully that'll be up for you to see in the next few days. But I really want to encourage you to participate with us on that one. We are doing a video series, two videos that will go through the design and then the actual quilting. And on In the Shadows, there is a tremendous amount of focus on threads and thread colors and how to use quilting to create design elements that people look at and can't figure out. So we want your quilting to move forward, and we're here to help you with that. Be sure and check out our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, youtube.com/Quilting Delights, and Facebook is Quilting Delights as well. We love having you put comments on our YouTube page and our Facebook page. We love being an inspiration for you, and we will see you soon. Thank you.